I noticed it the first time he showed up. My fiancé's so-called work husband had a way of appearing at our apartment that didn't feel coincidental. Coffee in hand, always chatting, always laughing a little too close to her. I said nothing. I watched. At first, I questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Insecure? That's what she said when I brought it up once. Her voice dripping with irritation. "You're just insecure," she told me, brushing it off like my feelings were a nuisance. But it didn't feel like insecurity. It felt like clarity, a quiet alarm going off that I couldn't ignore. I tried to stay calm. I didn't want confrontation. I didn't want fights. I wasn't looking for drama. Yet every time he came over, every time she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, a pit grew in my stomach. And when she noticed my silence, she called it sulking, said I was overthinking, said I was imagining tension where there was none. She was confident in her version of reality, and I had no proof to challenge her. But proof doesn't always come in documents or messages. Sometimes it comes in patterns, in instinct, in quiet observation. I saw the way she rolled her eyes at me when he made a comment, how she leaned in when he spoke, how her phone buzzed with him during hours he shouldn't have mattered. I said nothing still, choosing the long view. I didn't snap, didn't accuse, didn't rage. I measured every reaction, every smile, every lingering look. I realized that control isn't about anger. Control is about clarity. Knowing when to step back, when to remain composed, and when the final line has already been crossed. And the final line was coming. It hit me during one ordinary evening. She invited him over again, this time for dinner. I sat across the table, quiet, watching the conversation unfold. She laughed at things that weren't funny, leaned forward, and touched his arm lightly as if she hadn't noticed me sitting right there. I could feel the weight of the room shifting, her energy drawn elsewhere, and I kept my expression steady. No words escaped me, no raised voice, just observation. Later, when the dishes were clear and the wine glasses half full, she turned to me, smiling a little too innocently. "You're really overthinking things, you know," she said. "I don't know why you're being so insecure." Her words should have stung, but I stayed calm. I let her finish. I let the room absorb the tension, while I maintained the quiet. It wasn't arrogance, it wasn't pride, it was knowing my own worth, understanding that this wasn't a battle I needed to fight tonight. I left the kitchen for a moment, returning to my seat with a glass of water. Watching them, I realized that sometimes people test boundaries, not with malice but with habit. And some people don't notice the hurt they cause until it's undeniable. The crucial part is recognizing it, choosing a response that preserves your dignity rather than feeding the chaos. That night, she asked him to help with something small in the living room. I didn't follow. I didn't interject. I didn't argue. I just sat back, calm, and allowed my presence to exist without begging for attention, without asserting control, without compromising my sense of self. Because the moment you begin to justify your feelings to someone who refuses to see them, you've already lost the quiet power you were meant to hold. Days passed, and the pattern didn't change. He was there more often, always welcome, always familiar, always laughing with her in ways that felt rehearsed for my absence. I continued my quiet watch, measuring each interaction, noting the subtle cracks in her demeanor when she realized I wasn't reacting the way she expected. She wanted drama, reaction, tension, an argument she could claim victory in. I gave her none. One evening, it became undeniable. She laughed at something he said, then glanced at me, waiting for a spark, a flare, any sign of jealousy or anger. But there was nothing. Calm, quiet, observant. I rose from my chair, took my coat, and said simply, "I'm going out for a walk." No explanation. No dramatics. She looked stunned, as if she'd expected a different outcome. And in that moment, I saw the truth reflected in her eyes. She had underestimated the strength of a man who values himself more than the approval of another. I returned hours later to an empty apartment. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. His wasn't there. The quiet spaces between their laughter and her excuses now felt exposed, hollow. I didn't chase. I didn't call. I didn't plead. I realized that boundaries are respected, not through confrontation, but by standing firm in your own integrity. When she finally reached out, I answered with nothing more than honesty and calm. There was no bitterness, no venom, only clarity. I had given her every opportunity to act differently, to see the lines that had been crossed. And in refusing to play the part she expected, I reclaimed my own. Some lessons aren't taught with anger. They're taught with quiet resolve, with the knowledge that dignity held steadfast is far more powerful than any momentary drama. I walked away, and for the first time, I felt a freedom deeper than any conversation or argument could have offered.